Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third session of IB Appreciation Month. I am Ashma Singh, graduate assistant here at International Business Institute and also a graduate student here at UMSL, majoring in Information Systems and Business Intelligence Certification. We are live, and today we have our very special guest from Study Abroad team. First speaker today is our Senior Academic Advisor of Study Abroad, Cassidy Thompson, who joined UMSL Global in September 2018. Before coming to UMSL, she worked as a lecturer of French at Washington University in St. Louis while completing her PhD in French literature. As she loves international travel and help UMSL students to gain global perspective, she accompanied UMSL student and faculty on the China tour in summer 2019. And our second speaker for today's webinar is Study Abroad Advisor Annie Hyde, who joined UMSL Global in 2019 with 14 years of experience in secondary and post-secondary education. She received her bachelor's from St. Louis University in secondary education and her master's in English from University of Missouri, St. Louis. She is a strong advocate for all the students who wants to pursue international education and looks forward to helping others to achieve their study abroad dreams. Without any further delay, I would like to hand it over to Cassidy Thompson.
Thanks, Ashma, and thanks for having us. So welcome, everybody. We are here just to share a little bit about UMSL Study Abroad, talk a bit about kind of how the global pandemic affected study abroad in general, and to walk you through a little bit about what happened at UMSL a year ago to see where we're at and where we think where we hope study abroad is going to go in the future. So Ashma gave us a good introduction. So who we are, I'm Cassidy Thompson, and I'm actually the manager of education abroad. I need to change that on this slide. And Annie Hyde is our education abroad advisor. As Ashma said, I joined UMSL in September 2018. So I've been with the office just over 2 years. Started just as an advisor, and just through the circumstances, I'm now managing our education abroad programs as well as international partnerships and just international events throughout campus. And I will let Annie just give a brief introduction to herself. And just FYI, this picture was during the China study tour. So yeah, that was one of the coolest and most unexpected events that happened to me since I've been here. Maybe not more unexpected than dealing with a global pandemic, but to get the opportunity to go to China with our students was definitely a very cool thing that I got to do. So Annie?
Yeah, and so my picture is actually from Singapore. I was lucky enough to travel around East Asia and Southeast Asia when I was living abroad. I did live in South Korea for 6 years. There was only supposed to be one, but I loved it so much I was there for 6. Like Ashma said, I joined UMSL Global in 2019. I actually have done I started with the International Admissions Office, now with Study Abroad, and I also work with the International Partnerships team. So I'm excited to be also in charge of the faculty-led programming once that resumes, actually this summer, and it's kind of a teaser for later on in our presentation.
Yeah. And then just so you guys know where we're at, when we are on campus, we are in the SSB building. So attached to the tower. We're usually on the 3rd floor. Right now, like many offices, we are still working remotely. But when we're back on campus, you can definitely stop in and find us in the SSB building. All right, so a little bit about our agenda for today. We're just going to give you some basic information about UMSL Study Abroad so that you can know a little bit about who we are, who we send abroad, the students who like to go abroad. We are then kind of going to jump into looking at the COVID-19 timeline and the study abroad response to COVID-19. We're going to briefly look a little bit at some of the impacts of COVID on study abroad, and then we're going to look towards the future of study abroad, some of the challenges and solutions we found, and where we hope to go moving forward. And then we should have some time at the end for Q&A. All right, so who we are. You can see here that we basically have currently 30 direct exchange partners, some more active than others, but we have an exchange program is where a student can go abroad for a semester or a year. You're actually studying at a foreign university, taking classes sometimes with foreign students, sometimes you're taking language classes with other international students, but that would be an exchange program. And so we have about 30 different options for those. And then typically we have 10 to 15 faculty-led programs a year. And a faculty-led program is where an UMSL faculty member decides to teach a course on a specific topic that they are interested in, but they teach that course abroad, and they're typically 2 to 4 weeks long. So, we have some great faculty members in the College of Business who will teach, an international business course in the United Arab Emirates or in China or Belgium and the Netherlands, and students can accompany that professor for 2 weeks on site and complete the course. Those are typically done in the summer or the winter intersession. Just looking at this pie chart, you can see that is by far our most popular type of program here at UMSL. So since the fall of 2014, about 72% of our students have participated in those faculty-led programs. And that's pretty typical for even just looking nationwide. I think we're on the higher end, but those shorter 2 to 4 week programs are definitely the trend of what people want to do. We definitely still send students on those exchange and consortium programs. I always recommend, if you can do the semester, if you can do the year, do it. That's what I did abroad, and my only regret is that I only did a semester and not a year. And then we do have a few other kind of programs. So students who might find their own program and will still run it through our office to get credit, or students who go with programs that are affiliated with our office but aren't necessarily exchange programs. Again, real quick, just going through here, you can see we send more women abroad than we send men. Also very consistent with nationwide trends. More women are going abroad than men. And we certainly send more undergraduate students abroad than we send graduate students. And usually that's just simply an issue, at least through our office. Now, this is just looking at our office's data. A lot of times our exchange programs, it's a lot easier for an undergraduate to go abroad. Graduate programs tend to be a little more strict in what courses they can take and what courses can be filled. And a lot of our faculty-led options are for undergraduate students. So grads definitely can still go abroad, but if you're an undergraduate student, it is certainly easier to go abroad as an undergrad. Who goes abroad? You guys go abroad. Our business students certainly go abroad a lot. That is our top major since 2014 is our business administration BSBAs, and then even our business administration MBAs hit the top hit the top 5. I think it's unsurprising that modern languages would follow. So a lot of language majors like to go abroad. And then our psychology and criminal justice students, we're going abroad a lot. And I did just add this, is there a faculty-led program for these majors? And you can see in general, it's yes. So still kind of following with that trend that our students are going on faculty-led programs. And you can see in this picture a group of some of our business students who went to Bremen, Germany with Dr. Joe Rotman. In one of our long-standing summer programs where you get to spend 4 weeks in Bremen. So just a little teaser there. Where do our students go? So it's interesting because the top destination since 2014 is China. And I would say that that is probably thanks to some of our older faculty-led programs. We do have faculty-led programs that go to China. Less now than we did in the past. So they still hit the top of the list, but by and large right now, Japan is our most popular destination. We have and I think I might have seen in the list of participants a few people who've actually studied abroad in Japan. So we have 4 different exchange partners in Japan. We have a great faculty-led trip that goes to Japan every other summer, a very popular Japanese language program here, and a lot of business options in Japan. So you don't even have to speak Japanese. You don't have to be studying Japanese. You can go to Japan and study, business. So a lot of students do that as well. Germany is popular as well. Big plug because of our German, our Bremen program in Hochschule Bremen, and Costa Rica. That picture on your screen are UMSL students in Costa Rica. So we have a very popular Spanish program there, and Greece as well. Again, because we've got some faculty-led programs. So just a little information for you about where our students like to go. And then this is going to bring us into COVID-19. So looking at the number of students who go abroad, this is something we definitely want to increase. Something, we're looking at getting, closer to 300 students a year abroad and then going up more from there. But you can see we had a very sharp drop off in academic year 2019-2020. And that is because of COVID-19. So spring 2020 is when programs started to get canceled, students started to get recalled, and summer 2020 as well. And that all falls into academic year 2019-2020. So, and if we continued this into 2020, 2021, you would see an even sharper decline still. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about right now is COVID-19 and what happened. What happened specifically with study abroad. So we are going to look kind of very big picture at kind of my experience of how study abroad was affected by COVID-19. So some of the timeline events that I might show you maybe were important to you, maybe weren't important to you. Maybe you're wondering, why did I talk about this and I didn't talk about another event that happened? Really just kind of looking at some of the big picture things that affected what happened to me as I was in the process of making these decisions. And again, this is one person's experience, definitely not representative of the entire university or other study abroad professionals for sure. At the time, we usually are a 2-person office. I think in October 2019, the second person who started in our office quit. And so I was working by myself from October 2019 until Annie joined me in about June or July of this year. So this really is kind of my experience of COVID-19 in our office. So real big picture pandemic timeline here, and we are going to go a little more in detail. But you can see here, November 2019, we have the first COVID case identified in China. By January 2020, who had declared a global health emergency. By February 2020, Italy locked down, and I think that's when people really started paying attention and the virus started spreading through Europe. By March 2020, we had the US Department of State issuing their level 4 global travel advisory, something that had never been done before, for the entire world to be all of a sudden labeled do not travel. By March 2020, we had officially recalled all of our students back home. And by the end of March, all of our students were back home. And as we talk about this a little more, we will see it did not all just happen in March, but by March, we had officially made the decision that everybody needed to come back home. And then things did start to slow in terms of like the study abroad front. And kind of the next big thing was that in September 2020, the UMSL travel policy was updated to officially include study abroad as a university-sponsored event that, until further notice, has basically been canceled for health and safety reasons. So that is still in effect, and that has, been a big part in what we're doing and what we hope to do in the future. So before we go a little further in kind of what actually happened, I wanted to share some of the decision-making factors, because I did say that this was kind of my lived experience, but I don't want you to think that I was just sitting in the SSB building making these decisions on what was going to happen. There were so many playmakers and so many things that were happening as these decisions were being made. So things that were being considered: the World Health Organization, we were obviously paying attention to what they were saying. The CDC, constantly checking what they were saying. And then there were some really good COVID-19 dashboards that we were constantly checking to be, seeing where are the numbers, where are the spikes, what's going on globally. There was definitely the director of UMSL Global. So he was helping to make decisions, deciding what would be happening. We had a lot of meetings back and forth about, okay, what should we do now? Who should we contact? Making recommendations. The chancellor and eventually the unified command team, we certainly were in conversations with them. If not daily, weekly. Definitely had some 9 p.m. phone calls with the chancellor in January or February. So lots of conversation and people making those big decisions. There were also system policies that we had to consider. The system responses of the other schools. So what was UMKC doing? What was Mizzou doing? What was Rolla doing? When the system gives a policy, that definitely affects what we do as well. And then there is a big system-wide risk and insurance management group. So there were a lot of meetings going on with risk and insurance management as well. We were looking at our partner institutions. What were they doing? What was their response? How were they taking care of our students while they were there, if they were already on the ground? The Department of State travel advisories, and I keep them separate from the CDC and the World Health Organization, because we specifically have policies in place at UMSL and across the UM system that say that we do not support travel to level 3 and level 4 Department of State travel advice, who give those advisories. So if you're not familiar with travel.state.gov, if you're ever going to travel, that's a site you should be familiar with. And the Department of State basically offers these summaries about where you're going, gives advisories saying like level 1, it's all good. There's no issues. Level 2 is pretty standard. Just, be paying attention to your surroundings. But by the time you hit a level 3 and level 4, that's where we typically don't allow student travel to level 3 and level 4 countries, unless, a student can make a demonstrable case on why they should go there. So that was a huge player in deciding what we could and couldn't do. And then, of course, we were also talking to our faculty leaders as they were planning their summer programs, and in conversation with our students who were actually abroad or planning to go abroad. So there was a lot of communication going on throughout this whole process. So looking a little more in depth at what happened in January, because I think that's really when stuff started to happen. The big things for us on the global front was when, COVID, the World Health Organization started investigating what was going to be eventually known as COVID-19. At first, it was like, looking at these pneumonia-like symptoms. By January 23rd, the quarantine did hit in Wuhan. And by January 31st, WHO announced that it was a global health emergency. The reason we were paying such close attention to what was going on in China, I mean, obviously because we're an international office and we want to pay attention to those things, is that we had a China education practicum that was scheduled to go to China in mid-February. Students were going to do their student teaching from mid-February to March in Shenyang, China. So pretty far from Wuhan, but obviously still in China. So at UMSL, we were monitoring the situation. We'd been monitoring the situation since December. But by January, things were obviously changing and getting more serious. And we officially canceled the program on January 28th and to get students replaced, to get them to do other practicums, basically, to get them to be able to do their student teaching elsewhere. That may seem late, but again, we were all kind of watching and seeing what was happening. And as I said, Wuhan is pretty far away from where students were going to be working. And so at the time, people were like, well, there's no need to cancel it. They're so far away, we're going to be fine. But as we all learned, this was a quickly evolving situation. And so by January 28th, we had canceled the program, and we did work to get those students alternate placements for their student teaching. So nobody didn't graduate or didn't get to do their student teaching because of that cancellation. So moving into February, February was more of like a reconnaissance month. As I was looking through this, just kind of seeing what had happened, there was a lot of meetings. There were a lot of communications with our students who were already abroad and students who were planning on going abroad. And I think it's pretty consistent with what was going on across the nation as well, and across the globe. We were all just learning about COVID-19. So that's when we started to see air travel restrictions. It's when the US declared a public health emergency. By the end of February, people were talking about a pandemic. We weren't calling it a pandemic yet, but the CDC said, we've kind of hit 2 of 3 of the things, criterion that hit a pandemic. So what was going on here? Like I said, a lot of communication with the students who were already abroad. We had about 8 students who had already left and who were already, primarily in Europe, who were at their institutions, and just making sure that they were okay, making sure that they felt supported at our partner institutions, making sure that they understood that, hey, if you get sick, you've got insurance, and so you can make sure you use that. Obviously sharing those CDC health guidelines, saying, hey, make sure you're washing your hands. And then discussions for the students who had not yet left. for their programs. And so this is where the popularity of our Japanese programs comes in. So a lot of our Japanese partners, their semesters don't start until March. So we had about 4 students who hadn't left yet for their programs. 1 student who was currently in Japan already from, she was doing a full academic year, and 1 student who had who was in South Korea, but had returned back to the United States just for a visit in between the semesters. So we were in discussions with these students, letting them know, hey, we are monitoring this situation. You guys are kind of right in the heart of what's going on, and stay tuned. Keep us informed about what's going on. It's important to note that by the end of February, the U.S. Department of State still had listed Japan as a level 2. So we technically had no grounds for canceling a program in Japan yet, but level 3, I think Korea was already a level 3, China was a level 4. So we were definitely very closely watching the situation. I'm actually going to switch here because right at the beginning of March, so on March 2nd, we did officially cancel all of our programs going to Japan. And this was, I think, probably my worst week at UMSL, was that week where we had to cancel those programs. And I had to tell students, look, I know you were getting ready to leave. I know you're already there, and you've got to come home. We can't support you. We don't know if you're going to be able to get back if you don't come home now. Japan was still not a level 2, was not a level 3 yet. So we had a lot of people asking whether or not we were making the right decisions. But it was quite a week of working with advisors and professors to get students who were still here in the US enrolled in courses at UMSL at the beginning of March. So getting students in those second session 8-week classes. College of Business was wonderful working with us. Getting students who were taking Japanese language courses enrolled in courses that were not second session 8-week courses, but letting them get enrolled anyways to keep meeting their language requirements. By March 11th, I think by then, Japan had been upped to a level 3. WHO did declare COVID-19 a pandemic. And I am kind of skipping around a little bit between UMSL and global what happened here. March 11th as well was when all members of UMSL were required to register their travel, and that was through me, through our office. We run the travel registry, so if you are ever going abroad for a class or for a program, you are required to register your travel through our office. So a lot of meetings going on there with making sure people knew who was abroad and where they were at. By March 13th, I think all of you guys were very heavily affected because all learning went remote as of officially March 13th. And on March 19th, 2 things happened. The U.S. Department of State made that global level 4 travel ban, put that into effect, and that is also when we recalled all of our UMSL students who were already abroad. That was also a very interesting discussion because by then, cases were spiking in the United States. So we were having questions on, is it safer to leave students to kind of hunker down in place where they're at, or to bring them home? And these were questions that universities across the nation were asking. Ultimately, we decided that when the U.S. Department of State did a global level 4 travel ban, we could no longer keep students abroad because we say we don't support travel in level 3 and level 4 countries. So we did recall our students, and by the end of March, everybody was back home. And we could sigh momentarily, a little bit of relief. Everyone's back in the United States. So those were 3 very intense months to be working in UMSL Global, to be working in the study abroad office. And I know my experience, though, of that does not compare to that of the students who had their experiences interrupted, who were recalled, who had been planning these, life-changing experiences, and then to get told, sorry, you can't go. We've got to upend your whole plan. So it was definitely an experience for our students as well. Just a little bit on some of the assistance we did offer to the students who were affected. So obviously, we were working with advisors, with professors to get them enrolled. Flexibility would be the key word. So credit flexibility, making sure they could get the minimum number of credits required for their financial aid. Flexibility in course equivalencies for students who actually ended up coming home but finished their classes abroad. So we had about the 8 students who had been abroad since like January. A lot of them finished their semesters remote online from the United States, still taking their classes in the UK or still taking their classes in Spain. And so we had to have a lot of flexibility with them on, if they had to drop a course, if they had to change a course. I think everybody ended up getting, for the most part, what they needed. We were able to offer refunds for a lot of COVID-19 related expenses. So if students had to change their airfare, if they had housing deposits, we had one student who we had to get their supplies shipped back to the United States, like their luggage shipped back to the United States. We worked with them to pay for that. If there were train tickets or hotels associated with leaving the country because we had canceled the program, we did offer refunds for those students. And then probably my favorite thing that we did was we had about a 2-hour kind of debrief session where we invited all of those students whose programs had been canceled, who were affected by COVID-19, to come and just talk about what happened, to get to talk about the good things that did happen during their study abroad experience and how hard it was for them to leave, the things that they went through as they were leaving. We created some resources that we sent to students to help them process the grief of canceled experiences. I think everyone basically, if you were at a university, you experienced some form of grief. If it was you wanted to graduate and your graduation was postponed, for these students, you had been planning a trip and the whole trip was canceled. There was a big grieving process. So getting to do this event was, I think, the highlight of 2020 for me. Getting to just hear about the resilience of our students who had experienced studying abroad during COVID-19. And it was also the first time I really got to work with Annie. It was the beginning of June and Annie was starting to transition to helping me in study abroad. So that was a really exciting event to be a part of. Here, I say that study abroad started to take a back seat after basically March, because at the beginning of the pandemic, in terms of who was affected at the university, it really was study abroad at the forefront, looking at stuff in January and February. By March, obviously, it's a US public health crisis as well. It's the global pandemic. So once students are home, study abroad kind of goes to the back end, to the back burner. And while we're still paying attention and we're still figuring out what's going on, we definitely are not quite at the forefront anymore. So there's less that happens. But in April, we did cancel our faculty-led summer programs. Those were getting canceled basically throughout the months of April. We had some faculty members who just kind of right at the gate said, you know what, things are going to keep going. We're going to cancel our programs. We had other faculty members who wanted to stretch things out and see how things would go. Like all of us, a lot of us thought, you know, hey, we're going to be out for a few months, but then we'll all be back and things will go back to normal. So we did have some of those faculty members who held on a little longer for their programs. But by late April, we officially, I think all summer programs had been canceled officially, and all fall 2020 study abroad programs were officially canceled by the end of the month of April. And then nothing really happened until September in terms of affecting current student travel. So as we mentioned, that university-sponsored travel policy was updated. Spring and winter intersession programs were canceled, kind of as a result of this. If you check out the university-sponsored travel policy, it specifically says outside of essential activities, any international travel is basically not happening right now. And study abroad is included in that. So once that was updated, it led to us needing to cancel our spring 2021 programs, our winter intersession programs. By December, we had canceled our summer 2021 programs because it just wasn't looking like things were going to change. And unsurprisingly, it takes a lot of preparation and planning to get a summer program to run. And a lot of our faculty members had already said, you know what, hey, we're going to cancel. I don't think we have enough time to get a program put together. So that's where we stand today. Study abroad is officially canceled through summer 2021, but we are hoping, and that'll be kind of more what Annie's going to talk about, to be able to resume travel starting in fall 2021. And I'm not going to show you this for long. I just kind of wanted to give you just a picture of, especially up here at the top, the number of people who were affected. So we had about 28 students with canceled or deferred programs for spring 2020, or who had been planning on staying abroad for the full academic year. 8 of those students were able to kind of finish up their semesters abroad from home. We had 71 students who were already officially committed to their summer 2020 programs, so we had to cancel, and 6 who were already committed to a fall academic year program. And so that obviously translates into quite a few credit hours that, maybe that we didn't have because students chose not to study abroad. But it is interesting as well that all of this was happening during our recruitment period. So we are recruiting for summer programs and fall programs throughout the months of January, February, and in some cases into March. So we had about 76 students who had started applications but never submitted them. And 40 of those applications had actually been active in 2020. So students had either started them or started answering those questions, and then they abandoned them. And then 2 for fall and academic year students. So just again, an idea of that, we really did have students, we still have students interested in study abroad. But COVID-19 really did have an impact on our office and on our numbers and on the university as a whole, because we do, students do they do pay UMSL credit, they take these classes for credit, and those were all lost, especially during the summer months. And my last thing that I was going to talk a little bit about was just to give you an idea of, okay, so was UMSL alone in this? Were we making these decisions, were we like a lone dog in what we were doing? And the answer is absolutely not. So I do remember the IIE, Institute of International Education, they were doing surveys throughout the summer and throughout the pandemic. And their third report in particular was done in July. The questions were offered through July. And at the end of July, they published their report. There were about 520 institutions who answered. And just so you can get an idea, there were all kinds of different, public and private and doctoral, master's, baccalaureate institutions who responded. And we certainly were not alone in what was going on. So this is what was happening in the summer across the nation. You can see that it was pretty common for all on-campus events to be canceled, for buildings to be closed, for student housing to be closed. And then here at the bottom, in terms of travel, 86% of those institutions said that international travel for faculty and staff had been canceled. Domestic travel for faculty and staff had been canceled at 58% of institutions. And then 71% had canceled international travel for students. And I think, honestly, probably by the end, those numbers were higher. Let's see, come on. In terms of, and this is in July, what their plans were for fall 2020. And you can see about 64% of those universities had completely canceled all study abroad for fall 2020. That's where UMSL falls. Some were offering in-person or virtual programs abroad. Some still hadn't made a decision by July. So imagine if you were planning on going abroad in the fall and you still didn't know by July whether or not you were able to go. Very similar to our students who had their programs canceled at the last minute. And then 3% in terms of the undergrad level they didn't have study abroad as an option. And again, my last slide here, how will COVID impact study abroad in the academic year 2020-2021? So in July, about 79% of us said, yeah, I think we're going to see a substantial decline in academic year 2020-2021. As you can tell, we've had a complete decline. We will have 0 students who have gone abroad in 2020-2021. So I think in July, a lot of people were seeing the reality that study abroad was going to be highly impacted by the pandemic. So I am going to stop talking for a little bit, and I'm going to hand it over to Annie, who's going to just talk about some of the challenges and the changes that we faced as an office and looking towards the future before we go to Q&A.
Okay. Thank you, Cassidy. And if you want to bring up actually the both of the boxes here, that would be great, because did try to connect them a little bit. So some of these challenges are ones that Cassidy has already mentioned. Like, for example, when we had students return, enrolling those students in classes in the US at UMSL, and making sure they had the correct credits and that they were still on track academically. So one of the things that we have done since then is to really stress the importance of having good backup plans and to kind of give a nice idea for students of what those might be. I know for the other travelers out there, it's really tempting to choose the flight that might be a little less expensive, but because it doesn't have that guarantee of a refund if your plans change. So really having those type of refundable options. And then also, especially when it comes to our semester students, choosing classes that are also available, or choosing classes that are available at UMSL and having that as a backup plan, that students can enroll in those classes, and then when the deadline comes and they have to choose before the drop deadline, they can always drop those classes if it looks like their semester will be continuing, especially for this coming fall. We do encourage students to be optimistic and plan for a semester abroad in the fall, but have that backup plan of classes at UMSL. Students do have that big emotional adjustment that happened during COVID when they had to return. They weren't expecting it. Students who had already been abroad for maybe a semester and were expecting to be there for an academic year also might have had that reverse culture shock of coming back unexpectedly. I know that when I returned from abroad, I did experience that as well. So having those post-program opportunities to meet and process your return to the US, and that does not have to be a COVID-related situation. We loved having that experience, that meeting with our students, and we really do hope to have more of those going forward. The role of insurance, of course, was a big of major importance to our students when they were abroad and they were wondering how is my insurance going to help me if I get sick, if I need to go back to the United States? So the student insurance that all UMSL students will enroll in when they go abroad does cover medical treatment. So if you got sick, if you had COVID when you were abroad, the insurance would have covered that, and it would still in the future cover that. However, it does not cover repatriation. So the fact that our students had to come back to the US was not covered in their insurance. Luckily, because there are just some things you can't anticipate, UMSL was able to step in and to help with that, to help get students back financially. Uh, but since that is now something that we realize is a risk, we do always want to make that clear to students going forward that there can be some things that are not covered in their insurance, and and you know, as as things come up and we realize how important they are, we always do try to make that very clear to students. So students now applying will have a disclaimer and a release that they will be able to see, yes, there are issues like COVID, and unfortunately, going forward, we wouldn't necessarily be able to cover that. One of the questions in the chat, I think, or the Q&A came up about student request or demand for programming. And yes, COVID-19 did affect students and whether or not they wanted to study abroad. But as the pandemic has continued, I think it's affected students just like it's who want to go abroad, just like it's affected all of us. We want to get out, we want to have change, we want to travel, we want to have those new experiences. Um, and it's hard to not be able to look forward to the future and see that happening. We hopefully will see it happening in the future soon, and I'll add a little bit more. But one thing that we did as an office was to towards looking into virtual study abroad options, which have really gained in popularity throughout the university system and throughout study abroad systems in the US. And virtual study abroad options would allow students to get some of the cultural aspect and the language aspects that they would normally find on in-person programs, but from, of course, from their home city, from their home location. So the current state of study abroad, both at UMSL and kind of across the country, a lot of offices are still operating virtually. And of course, we are, as Cassidy said, at UMSL, also operating virtually. Global global travel warnings are still things that we monitor closely. And overall, in almost every country across the world, they do remain at that level 3, or potentially level 4. And that does affect us because we cannot send students abroad if they are at that level 3, which is, you can see, reconsider travel or above. UMSL travel restrictions have been extended through the summer of 2021. But that does bring us to that fact I mentioned, that we're looking into how virtual programming works and how study abroad offices throughout the system and throughout the country have opened possibly those types of summer programs, even if the travel restrictions say you cannot travel internationally. Okay. So the future of study abroad at UMSL. So I talked about the virtual programs, and UMSL is actually going to be offering a virtual a study abroad program this summer. It will be a program that typically goes to Costa Rica. They would go usually during the winter intersession, and they hope to go again this coming winter intersession. But they were planning to go because they had to delay the last year. They were planning to go this summer. And the faculty leader for this program, Amy DeGrossa, has worked with a language academy in Costa Rica to offer a virtual option during the first 4-week summer session. So this is really, I think, is going to be a great opportunity for our students because they'll be able to have that one-on-one language and conversation, activity, and exchange with people who are living in Costa Rica, not only instructors, but also families. There are some tour guides because they're going to take some virtual tours. They'll be able to take things like cooking classes and dance classes that'll happen virtually over the summer. So that is our one summer program that will continue running. We are optimistically looking forward to fall 2021 for our students who are interested in semester exchange and academic year exchange starting in the fall. All of our applications are open. We have had students who have started and completed applications for programs to Europe, to Asia, and throughout the world. So we are hopeful there. And then one thing that I think that may end up being a benefit for us is that, so with our faculty-led programs that usually happen over the summer, because they have been postponed from last year, students will likely have more choices for summer programming in 2022. Some of our programs go every other year, but because of the off year this coming summer, they'll get the chance to have a number of programs running in the summer of 2022. So we are looking forward to the future. Okay, and then just briefly, I wanted to talk about why our business students in particular study abroad and what the benefits are for them. And some of these are true across the board for our summer, or really across the board for our study abroad students. So if study abroad alumni tend to graduate earlier and with a higher GPA on average than their on-campus peers. They also gain skills, as you can imagine, in cross-cultural communication. If you are there for a language program, or even if you're not, you're going to gain language skills just to get around and to communicate. Adaptability, independence, and of course, flexibility are all skills that our students are going to gain during a study abroad program. And also, it's not quite on here, but like our students usually gain in, maturity, experience, and and also making contacts. So you have these great new experiences. You get to immerse yourself in a new culture. You get friends and potential contacts for down the road around the world, and of course you get to have fun and explore these different locations. So I know Cassidy mentioned we do have several exchange partners. We have about 30 to 34 exchange partners and programs. So those might also include some of our faculty programs for students to look into. And one of the great things about being a business student at UMSL is that pretty much all of these exchange partners would be available to you. Some of the schools might not have as many programs, whether it's in a foreign language or in English for other majors, but almost all of our exchange partners will offer courses in English for business students or in the business area. So foreign language proficiency is not required. You could go to Japan and not speak Japanese, and you would still be able to take classes in English. We do have summer and winter intersession faculty-led programs that are run by business faculty. So those are also a really great option for business students. And then financial aid and scholarships are always available for our programs. If you qualify for financial aid and you have money available for the semester or for the summer or winter, you can apply your financial aid, and Study Abroad offers scholarships for all of our applicants. Okay, just really quickly, if learning about all these wonderful places and seeing all these great backgrounds has made you interested in what study abroad could be for you as a business student, some of the things you could do to find out more is to check out the study abroad website, which we will have. And that's a place where you can look through our different programs as well. You can search for programs for business students and see all of the 30, 34 that pop up. You can talk to your academic advisor. And this is something we really do recommend because you want to plan for what courses you would want to save to take on a study abroad program or exchange program. And then one thing you can do, luckily it's good timing, is you can attend our virtual study abroad fair. Oh, it's very virtual, you can see. And it is coming up very shortly. It'll be the 17th. So next Wednesday is the 17th. And you can learn all about the different locations. You can talk to some of our alumni. You can talk to some of the faculty leaders and learn more about what it would take to study abroad. And if you're interested in that, you can register either on our website, that global.umsl.edu/abroad, or if you go to Triton Globetrotter, you can also register there. So that's a little about where study abroad is going, hopefully, that we see in the future here at UMSL. Like Cassidy said, we are hoping to and planning on getting more opportunities for students forward, and we hope to send even more as we come out of the pandemic, and we know that students are looking forward to all the opportunities out there. So we would love to take questions. I see there are a couple more in the Q&A, and I don't know, Ashma, if you'd like to share those or how that would work, but
so yeah, we have a couple of questions. So for the first one, first and the second one, you did answer it briefly. So I'm just going to jump into the third one. How can I calculate a cost of a semester abroad? What expenses are covered by UMSL and what expenses do I need to cover by myself?
Yeah, so good question. So on our study abroad website, any of our exchange partners that you would find, we have a dates and a cost tab, and we have budget sheets listed for with estimates on how much it would cost to study abroad for a semester, how much it would cost to study abroad for a full year. Just in general, you do have to be enrolled full time for a semester abroad. So you will be paying your normal UMSL tuition for that semester. So you're going to be enrolled in 12. Some students will go up to 15 or 16 credits. I tend to say, hey, you're experiencing you got a time abroad, I would lean towards sticking at 12. But so you would be paying your normal UMSL tuition, and then you'll be responsible for your housing, your meals, your flight there. So I mean, basically UMSL is not paying for your semester abroad. You're basically going to be paying for a semester abroad as opposed to a semester here at UMSL. Some of our programs, depending on where you go, can be as expensive or less expensive than a semester at UMSL. Some of our programs, depending on the location, are a little more expensive than a semester at UMSL. One good thing that we have, though, is we do, for people thinking about going abroad for a semester, we have multiple $5,000 scholarships, or sometimes $5,000 plus scholarships available to our semester students. So sometimes $5,000, if you're going abroad for a semester, that is easily half of the entire cost of the whole thing. Your tuition, your flight. I mean, basically our entire estimate for how much the program is going to cost. And when we look at that cost, tuition is typically going to be covered by your financial aid. So most students at UMSL and across the globe use financial aid to help pay to cover their tuition, sometimes other living expenses. All of that can go towards your semester abroad. So any financial aid that you receive for a normal semester, you're going to be able to apply to your semester abroad at UMSL. Any scholarships that you receive, typically those are going to go forward as well on top of any study abroad scholarships that you would receive for your study abroad time. There are some external scholarship opportunities that you can pursue, and some students do. So, we always say, hey, look at those as well. But I would say I think a typical semester at UMSL is somewhere between 12,000 is the official estimate, 12 and like 14 if you're counting all of tuition. And our study abroad programs can range from about 10 to 16 a semester. So it is fairly comparable to a semester at UMSL.
Okay, so we have another question. What is the most popular place students like to go?
Japan. Japan is definitely
Okay.
our most popular destination. Like I said, I actually think we have 5 exchange partners in Japan. And we have our really popular Japanese tour that goes for 2 weeks in the summer. Usually it's every other summer. Japan is definitely our number one. Followed, I would say, by Ireland. My background is actually very close to a place that you could go if you studied in Ireland at the University of Limerick, for example, one of our most popular partners. I think these are the Cliffs of Moher. And we definitely send a lot of students to Ireland, and we have a very popular faculty-led program. Annie, is there any other locations you want to highlight?
In terms of popularity, well, I mean, I don't know if I would say in terms of popularity, but I would always like to encourage students to check out the South Korean programs, because we have had alumni who really loved their experiences there, and that's where I also spent several years. So we have a new partner actually in South Korea as well, and I think that is one of the easiest countries in East Asia to navigate if you do not speak the language, if that makes sense. Pretty much all of their official announcements and even, transportation systems can be are also announced in English. I know several people who have lived there for decades and not become fluent in the language, and and they get along very easily. So there's even an English helpline if you want to call that and be like, I can't understand this, help me please. So South Korea is a great option. And then I studied abroad during the summer when I was an undergraduate in the UK. And I mean, there are these opportunities. Like, I studied Shakespeare, and if you get the opportunity to study Shakespeare in England, why not take it, right? So there's something to be said for all of our locations, I feel like. I did want to,
Okay.
I know, sorry, go ahead, Ashma. Do you have a question?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention really quickly, I know I touched on it, and Cassidy mentioned that she'd like to answer the question live about our virtual study abroad programs. Ellie asked, says that she was curious about the detailed format and what kind of value students can get out of these programs. For the one that we're running in the summer, I just wanted to stress, so this is going to be run by Amy DeGrosa in the Spanish, as a member of the Spanish faculty. And so students would be able to, of course, get that 3 credit hour, get those 3 credit hours. But what it will be is students will have at least 2 weeks of almost immersion, because you'll be speaking with Costa Rican instructors through their language academy for multiple hours a day. It will be also a chance to speak with families, like host families. They're called host families. So regular people within Costa Rica, and really try to get a chance to communicate authentically with Spanish speakers who are living in a country where that is the primary language. But in addition to that, students will get all of those cultural elements that, yes, would probably be nicer to do in person. But if you like to experience cooking classes where the ingredients will be provided to you as part of the program, you'll get to experience the dance instruction. You will have a tour guide for an urban art tour of the capital of Costa Rica. You'll be able to also have some one-on-one conversations outside of the typical academy programming with Talk Abroad students. See other things with that program. So there are a lot of different things that you'll get in addition to Spanish instruction in this particular program. And I think it's a really great value for students too, because you don't have all of the travel expenses. It's probably going to have, you'll be paying the tuition, of course, for the 3 credit hours. And then the program fee, which is what you would have to pay in addition, is probably going to run you between $300 and $400. And the important thing to note there is that we do still offer study abroad scholarships, even over the summer for our virtual programs. So we would really suggest that you apply for those. And this program should have applications opening in the next week.
And just again, little disclaimer there, it is, because it is a Spanish language program, you do have to be at Spanish 3. So you have to have taken Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 in order to participate in this program, but it is for Spanish 3 credit, and $21.99 if you're a little further along than Spanish 3. So that is kind of a prereq. You do have to be at that appropriate level. And yes, like Annie said, we are hoping to be able to, we're going to offer scholarships. So hopefully to be able to cover a lot of that program fee. So you're really only paying your tuition. So definitely something we're excited about as we figure out what the appetite will be for virtual programming. We know that UMKC is also is going to have one virtual program this summer. Mizzou, I think, did one last summer. So I think as a system, we're just kind of dipping our toes and seeing what that's going to be like, and if it's something we'd be interested in continuing.
Okay, so we have a really I'm really curious about this one. So will UMSL still be accepting incoming students coming from other countries where they accepted the whole time?
So I'll talk about that from the exchange perspective, and I'll let Annie talk about it a little more, just since she's got a little bit more into the recruitment side. So from the exchange perspective, like where I'm talking about, we had students who were abroad in, say, the UK or Spain or going to Japan. We also had students who were here at UMSL during the pandemic who were deciding whether or not they were going to stay. They were study abroad students. So probably kind of a gap that I should have talked about in my presentation was, yes, I was working with our students who were here internationally to get them back home, to make sure most of them did leave. I think we had one student from Ireland who decided to stay, who was was taking advantage of everything he possibly could. I think he was gonna try to go on a cruise, but ended up getting canceled. It's like, you probably shouldn't go on a cruise right now. But so they did end up all going home. A lot of them, like our UMSL students, finished their semesters virtually. We had a very high interest of international students from exchange partners to come to UMSL in fall 2020. Unfortunately, all of them had to cancel their programs. We had one who was, again, our Irish students. They're very, very persistent. One who was planning on coming here in spring 2021, so who would be here right now with us. But since the pandemic has really hit huge levels in Ireland, the government canceled his visa appointment the week before his visa deadline to go get his visa to come here. So unfortunately, we don't have any exchange students who are here at the moment, but we do in terms of those exchange study abroad students. Just like us, people are looking forward to hopefully being able to resume, and we do think we'll have students who are going to be here in the fall. Now that's the exchange program. I'll let Annie talk a little bit more about our international students who are actually here getting UMSL degrees as opposed to studying abroad here.
Yeah, so we, of course, we were continuing to accept applications for international admissions for international students throughout the entire time of the pandemic. However, and students were really, really still excited to apply, and we're still looking at studying abroad, at coming to UMSL as international students, despite the rising numbers in the US of cases. Unfortunately, as everything really shut down in the US, that would include the different US embassies around the world. So students were not able to make appointments to receive student visas. So many of the students who were accepted to UMSL had to defer at least one semester. And then that has become up to 2 semesters. After 2 semesters, students do have to reapply because they may have had additional coursework in the meantime. We still do have a lot of students who not only have deferred, but are still applying in hopes to arrive in the fall. As there have been pockets in between variants and in between closures, when the embassies have been open, some students have been able to make those visa appointments and get their study visas and start their plans to come to the United States. It's just then it depends on, you know, if their flights are canceled, if the visa appointments that they make, like the student in Ireland, if those are canceled. We have hopes that we'll see more students who are able to arrive in the US in the fall. But for this last spring, for example, most of the students, new international students on campus, were transfer students who were coming from schools in the US. I will say one positive for our international students is in the past, they could only take one online course. And of course, that would have been very restrictive during COVID. And the government did recognize that. And so students were able to take a number of online classes as long as they had at least one hybrid class included in their schedule. So maybe in the next orientation. Sorry, go ahead, Ashma.
So we have another question. So due to this pandemic, many students, do they consider study abroad or not? And also, like, what are the suggestions would you like to give it to those students who are actually considering, or maybe not considering, study abroad as well?
So one of the I think one of the encouraging things to see as someone whose job it is to send students abroad, and then to really not be able to do that. And for the past year, my job has been telling students who can't go abroad, is that we still have students who want to go abroad. So I still had students who, despite everything being canceled, applied for spring 2021 programs, who were asking about winter intercession programs, students who want to go abroad in the summer. So the interest is still there. And as much as you can, if you can wait, if you can go abroad, I would say try to wait, try to see if you can go abroad. As I said, if you can fit a fall 2021 program into your schedule, let's try to make it work. We obviously cannot guarantee that students are going to be able to go abroad in the fall. If the university travel policy remains as it is now, unchanged, unfortunately, we will have to cancel fall 2021 study abroad. But as Annie mentioned, we really are working on making those backup plans. So any student who has come to me and said, okay, I want to go abroad in fall 2021, or this is also the case for anyone who wanted to go abroad fall 2020 or spring 2021, what we've been doing is saying, okay, when it comes time for you to enroll for courses at UMSL, enroll for courses at UMSL. Enroll for your normal semester abroad at UMSL, so that if we have to cancel your travel, you're enrolled in classes and you're not finding yourself scrambling saying, oh no, the course I needed for my major has now filled and I can't hit this and I can't get these courses that I need. We can always drop those courses and put you in what we do, the study abroad placeholder class, for while you're actually abroad. So as Annie mentioned, it's the importance of plans and backup plans for your backup plans, which I recognize is not the best place to be in, but it's the place we're in right now. So look into it. I think a lot of students have this idea that that you should decide you want to go abroad this semester before you want to go abroad. And I think it's a really good idea to make your plans a year in advance. So, maybe right now you start looking at spring 2021 options and seeing what kind of exchange opportunities we have. Seeing what kind of faculty-led programs we might have for summer 2022. That really gives you a lot more time to prepare financially for your semester abroad, emotionally for your semester abroad, and just to find if there are other scholarship options out there, as opposed to if you decide in October that you want to go abroad in January. That's a lot harder to do. Not always possible, sometimes possible. But that would be my advice, is just to start looking into it, seeing what you've got. I'm obviously telling people, do not make purchases. So even if you get accepted into a fall 2021 program, don't go out and buy your plane ticket now. Don't go out and, purchase things that, and if you do make purchases, make them as refundable as you possibly can. Though that's been my advice for people, is don't give up on it, but look at what other options are out there. See how you can find international opportunities here on campus. There are students here. They are doing events. If you're a language student, find the Japanese Student Association and meet with them. Keep those international opportunities going, because I think we're all learning that the world is a lot smaller than we thought it was. And so virtually, you still can connect to students across the world. You still can have those international opportunities. I'm going to be the first to say a virtual program's not the same thing. It's not the same experience as an in-person activity. But that's not to say that it's without value. And as international business majors, I guarantee that even if you never plan to leave the United States, you are going to work with people across the world. You're going to be working with supply chains across the world. You're going to have stakeholders who are making decisions that affect you across the world. So find those opportunities now, whether they're in person or online, to make those cultural connections and to experience the world that St. Louis Haven has to offer.
Okay, so we have another question. Have students ever met a future employer during a study abroad program?
Well, unfortunately, you've only got 2 years of historical knowledge sitting here. And of those 2 years, 1 year, the programs were canceled. So I would lean towards saying, has it ever happened? Yes, certainly. We have had students who, I know a student who studied abroad in Japan, who just did the Japan study tour, she didn't meet her employer, but is currently trying to do teaching in Japan. So her job is going to be going to Japan and teaching English. So did she meet her direct employer? No, but she decided what she wanted to do while she was there and is pursuing employment in Japan. Some of our faculty-led programs in particular, like Professor Michael Costello, takes students abroad to United Arab Emirates and Belgium and the Netherlands, and he actually takes students into companies so that they can see how they work and what they do. And students are making those contacts within those companies. I don't know if there's ever been a direct employment offer or option from that, but again, it is kind of opening the door and letting you maybe see opportunities that you didn't expect or know were available to you. But again, like I said, in the 2 years that I've been here, I don't know that there's been a direct employment, but
And well, and this would not necessarily be in an international business position, but one of the former members of international admissions, I know she did a study abroad at the University of Limerick, and she actually loved it so much. She did a semester program. She went back and did her entire master's there, and she began working with the school in admissions. Through like I don't know if it was a formal or informal official and unofficial internship. And when she graduated, she did want to continue working with admissions, and the school offered her a job working with them. Unfortunately, they were not able to get her visa finalized in time for her to remain in Ireland. She had to come back to the US for at least a little while. And then she did end up getting a job with UMSL and remaining with us. So she did have that opportunity. They were going to sponsor her visa. She was going to stay there and have that employment, but she ended up choosing to come and accept the employment in the US. So it's definitely possible, especially for those semester and study and academic year placements where you meet so many people.
So we have one more question. Will there be more virtual activities from study abroad program except the classes?
So more virtual activities, like in
Like
terms
from the study abroad team, like a study abroad program, like a virtual career services that you just mentioned before this webinar.
So we are gonna do our virtual fair, and we do participate anywhere we're invited in terms of like recruitment events. I think career services is a place we need to plug in a little more to help our alumni make sure they know like how marketable their experiences are, even if it's a 2 to 4 week program. In terms of actual like virtual study abroad programming, we'll see. We want to see how this summer 2021 program goes, see what the appetite, what the interest is. We do recognize that providing a virtual program might open doors for students to go abroad who couldn't otherwise go abroad. So if this program goes well and there seems to be appetite and interest in faculty members as well in creating these virtual opportunities, we certainly hope to explore them further. But I will say, as an office, UMSL Global has been doing a lot of virtual events for international students. And I know they would love for those to be opened for domestic students as well. So, all of you guys who in our office, we would just say, you guys are the domestics, right? We'd love to have you guys join us in some of our events. Like we've done, I think, virtual gingerbread house making. I did a crochet event with students last week, I think. They've done all kinds of virtual events since the pandemic to help our international students who are here feel connected on a campus that is very remote right now, right? A lot of people are not on campus. So keep an eye out for those events. If those are things that you'd like to hear more about, we can certainly get you connected with the coordinators who are arranging those. If you would like to, say connect with some of the international students who are here this semester.
Yeah, there's almost always at least one kind of fun social event a month. So definitely, if you'd like to participate in that, we do encourage all students, international, domestic, to join us.
All right, that was really wonderful and very informational. Thank you so much, Cassidy and Annie, for this webinar. We definitely learned a lot about the whole study abroad team, what we could expect as a student. And thank you to all our attendees here in States and all over the world, because we're live on Facebook and there are a bunch of other people watching us as well. So thank you so much. And with this, I would like to end the webinar, and we do have our next executive panel webinar on February the 12th on strategic adjustment and risk management during the pandemic. So please do not forget to join us in our 4th webinar on February 12th. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.